So, after a lot of pomp and circumstance, the ANC is finally willing to admit that our economy is in a state of emergency. You all remember that when Donald Trump first announced that he's going to bring tariffs, the ANC sort of went, "We will not be bullied. You won't tell us what to do." Well, as it turns out, we will be bullied, and the Americans will tell us what to do. And the reason for that is simple. Literally, in one night, I covered this in yesterday's videos, 750 million wiped out from one of our largest automotive manufacturers in the country, or at least parts manufacturers in the country, with more to follow. The citrus industry has already warned that they're looking at hundreds of millions of rands gone in an instant if these 30% tariffs actually were to come through. So our economy that already doesn't have a lot of leeway, doesn't have a lot of movement space, is now getting even less movement space. And of course, the ANC is desperately trying to do something to help out. They've committed to helping small organizations, small operations that will be affected by these tariffs to actually come out of that and survive it. The issue is, and one should ask the question, with what money? Remember, government doesn't have money. The only money government has is the money that is paid for by taxpayers. The tax base of South Africa is already at a breaking point, with most of us not having enough money left to actually pay all of these taxes. We have a government that is insistent that it wants national health insurance, but then it also wants to bail out corporations that will be losing a significant chunk, by the way, of trade. Look at this chart, 8%, the USA. But this chart is a little misleading. First, because the United States is one of the few countries on this list with which we have a trade surplus, meaning we sell way more to them than what they sell to us. This means that we stand to lose most if we lose 8% of that. And by the way, most developed nations on earth, if they were to just suddenly lose 8% of their entire GDP, that would be devastating, right? We're not most developed nations. In fact, we're so deep in trouble. We have a debt to GDP ratio of 76%. We pay 1.2 billion rand a day in debt servicing costs. Our country is already overtaxed, overburdened. Everything is going wrong, and yet we think that we can lose 8% and we'll be okay. To anyone going, well, we can just solve it. We can just start trading with other people. Even the ANC now finally admits that's just not possible. Park Stau spoke about China, spoke about how they're going to try and offset some of the stuff to China, but they do understand that this takes a long time. And what people should remember, these contracts, shipping lanes, dockyards, and the like, these contracts aren't signed on like a monthly basis, right? It's signed on decades. You have to sign with these companies. And once you're signed, they're going to hold you to it. So even if you don't have a lot of stuff that you're shipping to America, you'll still have to pay for the harbor fees, the docking fees, and all the rest of it, because there's workers that may need to be called in order to do the work of actually unloading these ships. But these ships aren't coming because no one in America wants to buy these goods. Also, setting up new trade lanes and new shipping lanes. These take a lot of time, a lot of effort, and it's not something that you can just cancel, right? So the idea that we're just going to offset this without paying any price, that's ridiculous. And like I said, the ANC is finally realizing this. The problem, of course, with the ANC is that they don't seem to understand that they are the reason we're in this situation in the first place. Just going on their statement, right? They go, this was President Ramaphosa in his closing address. I was watching it earlier today. But in his closing address, he says, "We also characterize the state of our economy as being in a state of emergency that requires drastic action. Our focus on an inclusive and resilient economy is important as we begin this month of August, Women's Month." Now, first and foremost, your focus should not be on building an inclusive or resilient economy. Your focus as government should be on allowing others to build a resilient and inclusive economy. The government's job is to basically get out of the way so that other people can open businesses and do the job, right? The government cannot do this. And that's the problem. The main problem in South Africa is that the government so desperately wants to be part of every single solution. A solution cannot exist without the government being able to tout themselves as being the ones that offered the solution. But then this is where just the ideological burdens of South Africa come from. The financial and economic inclusion of women is vital to the empowerment of women in our country with the view of achieving gender equality. We're a country that cannot even achieve normal equality. Not least of which because equality is an unachievable goal, because people will always be different. But even if you were to put equality as an achievable goal, right, or something that you're at least striving towards, you can't even have equality amongst normal people. And yet now you're focused on equality with women. Like, what the hell are we playing at? Just get the economy going, right? Once we're all making money and once the country is growing, then we can start worrying about nonsense like, oh, are women equal to men in 100% of all ways? And it's just complete nonsense. But okay, so that's sort of where the ANC falls at this time. Ramaphosa ends it with saying, at the same time, we must invest in the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. Africa will not make any difference. Africa is broke and poor and filled with a bunch of failed states. DTIC, the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, is already working on a number of interventions to try and support and assist various exporters of products that come from our country. Ronald Lamola, of course, for his part at the NEC, admits that dealing with the United States is very, very difficult, but he ends up by saying, at this point, we are focused on the task at hand and not the blame game. We'll leave that to others. That's great. They're focused on the task at hand. Of course, they've had 4 months to focus on the task at hand. And in that 4 months, they've not focused on the task at hand. But now, the ANC wants you to know that now they are indeed focused on the task at hand. And they're not going to play the blame game. Their focus is on doing the task at hand. But then, of course, literally in the next bit of his speech, he goes, it is unfortunate that this government's efforts in resetting the relationship with the US has been undermined by some actors within South African society. All of us as South Africans, regardless of our political affiliations, whether you are an opposition, NGO, GNU partner, or anything, when you get out of South Africa, we all have a responsibility to protect the national interests of South Africa. Thereby, of course, blaming AfriForum. Yesterday, I showed in a video why this is completely bonkers, because AfriForum wasn't even in the US when Trump first announced the tariffs. More importantly, and I need to just talk about this for 2 seconds. I have absolutely, as a private citizen of this country, I have no obligation whatsoever to protect anything about this country. This country has to be worthy of my protection. The country does not get to demand my protection. And the country is not worthy of it. Mr. Lamola, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, you are not worthy of the protections of the national interest, because your national interest does not in any way, shape, or form align with my own. I don't agree with what you're trying to do. I don't agree with the path that you've laid out for this country. I don't agree with your socialistic, communistic nonsense. I don't agree with you. So I will not defend the national interests of this nation, because the nation's national interests and my interests are juxtaposed to one another. And so I will speak out until either you are out of office or you change your mind. But you cannot demand my acquiescence to your requests. You can only ask, and I can say no, because I'm a free citizen of this nation. And this nation is great, minus you. And then just to further highlight the incredible nonsense of this government and why we are most likely fundamentally screwed. This is Ramaphosa.
Through the GNU, we've been able to safeguard the core progressive policy agenda of the National Democratic Revolution.
See, so this is my biggest problem. Through the GNU, and this is what the DA and the other parties have not yet understood. Progressive, National Democratic Revolution, these are all words of socialists and communists. The National Democratic Revolution, by the way, is the ANC's word for communism, their communist takeover of the country. Ramaphosa here openly admits that the GNU, the establishment of the GNU, is perfect for what they're trying to achieve. which is the communism and the communist dream of South Africa. The DA, I think, are unwilling participants, or maybe willing participants in this, and they don't seem to realize it. And that is where we are. The ANC is so entrenched in this communist mindset that there is no way to move them off of it. Fundamentally, I don't see good times ahead for South Africa. If anything, I see a very bad time on the horizon. But let me know in the comment section down below how you see all of this play out. I'd love to read your thoughts. As always, hit the like if you liked, the dislike if you didn't. Please consider leaving a comment and also subscribing if you enjoy what I do and you want to have more people see the content, rational, honest news, and hopefully, YouTube recommends it to other people. Then, if you want to support this channel a little bit more directly, the link is in the description down below to Patreon. $3 a month gets you ad-free viewing, or just hit the join button below this video. As always, ladies and gentlemen, be good to each other, be kind to each other, and I will see all of you in the next one. A peace.